Bienvenido, Guillermo. ¿Cómo estás?
Muchas gracias. Hello, how are you?
I am good. I am good. I could get along in Spanish, but I couldn't do this interview in Spanish, so we're going to
I,
go to English.
I'm pretty sure that your Spanish is better than my English, but bear with me.
No, not. But what I would like to do one day is, spend 6 months in Mexico and just speak Spanish. That would be very cool, and really get it for them. But for this, we'll go in English. And first of all, thanks so much for participating in our Leaders Who Care series. And you've got like such a cool story, so I'm really grateful that you're joining us. And I think a good place to start is if you can briefly, don't tell everything because then we won't have anything left to talk about. But if you can briefly introduce yourself, who you are, family, things like that, that would be great.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm pretty excited to be part of this super extraordinary movement that you're leading.
Thanks.
And I'm a civil engineer. I studied an MBA a lot of years ago, like 20 plus years ago. And then I had the opportunity to study different executive programs like the OPM in Harvard Business School, another program in Columbia Business School, another business school in Mexico, and so on. So I'm a truly believer in education, of course. I'm the father of two teenagers, which are growing like crazy.
Yeah, I know.
They're married 25. This year, we're going to get 25 years
Wow.
married.
Congratulations.
And another 9 dating, so it's a lifetime with my wife.
Right.
And in the professional field, I have like almost 19 years being an entrepreneur. I define myself as a social entrepreneur in different initiatives, different companies. I had the opportunity to sold 2 companies and found like some other companies, and so basically, I have been working with the bottom of the pyramid during the last 19 years.
Yeah, you reminded me when you said teenagers because I had a conversation last week about kids, this age, this age, and teenagers, and Jay Leno. I don't know if you know him. He's a comedian. I used to be on the Tonight Show, and he used to say, when the kids become teenagers, they really get kidnapped or abducted by aliens, and then a few years later they come back normal.
Yeah, he's right.
It's not that far off. So, no, that's a great story of your family. And before we go deeper into the business and all that, I mean, you do describe yourself as a social entrepreneur. You believe that you can have profitability and social impact at the same time, which we definitely do. They can coexist in balance. But tell me first, why do you do, or why have you done, and why do you do what you do?
Well, I don't know if you have read James Baldwin, but this guy have say something that touched me a lot. He said that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. So I'm a truly believer of 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 that, because I was traveling at some point of my life in Central and South Africa, and I was very touched when I saw for my first time, I mean, for my first conscious life, uh, the real poverty. So I decided myself to make something about it. So I stepped down for like almost 10 years corporate career. I was working at that time with the Cemex, the cement manufacturer,
Mm-hmm.
and I was growing in my professional career. Working business as usual and working hard. Considering I was considered a racing star at that point, so it was like pretty cool. But at some point, I decided to step down and start to do something about to fight the poverty. That's how I started.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even seeing it on TV is not the same, right? When you saw it, I can see how it could really touch you and shake you up even a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about maybe almost 30 years ago or something like that, and at that time the internet wasn't there,
Right.
and so it wasn't that easy to get in touch with the real world as is it today. But anyway, for those who have the opportunity to raise and grow in a like mid class or high class in terms of economic family, it's not easy to get, to have these reference points about the poverty. So at some point when I had this opportunity, I was like, oh, wow, what this is the real poverty. So, and it's a long story, but that was like the aha moment, when I say, okay, no, I have to do something about it.
Yeah, and that's a big statement where I have to do something about it too, because sometimes people would say that and they either wouldn't know where to start, or sometimes it's such a big thing that they don't start versus just taking one step. So, I look at, speaking of corporate, I look at it's really taken decades for leaders to realize that making an impact, social, environmental impact, is actually good for business. It's good for attracting the right talent. So when that did happen to you, that you saw that, how did you know, okay, you said, oh, I got to do something about it. It happens to a lot of people. I got to do something about it. Then they go home and they get caught up in their day life again, and et cetera, et cetera. So what happened? Like, what turned it that you actually took action, that you actually said, not only do I need to do something, I'm going to do something about this?
But it was, of course, it was a process. But at the end of the day, I came back to Mexico after traveling, looking for opportunities. But at that time, my job was like find different opportunities for the company. The company was, but do you remember that in the 80s, the trend was the re-engineering, and then in the 90s the innovation, and so it was like early 90s. So the company decided to start an innovation processes within the company, like so I started to become an intrapreneur for the company. So my job was to find different opportunities for the company, and they put in place like a kind of Shark Tank. They put a budget with the VP, so they decide who projects fund or who projects not. And my job, which by the way was like the dream of every MBA, because my job was to find new opportunities,
Yeah.
put together a business plan, and then pitch it and try to raise funds from my bosses. So it was like a super good exercise in terms of training, But at some point, when I came back from the Africas and they started traveling within Mexico, and so I put together a business plan related to build houses for people. And the business proposal was to reduce the price almost by the half, and reduce the time of construction by 30 or 40%. And when I pitched it, the value proposition was there, but the only tiny detail is that the reduce of cost came out of reducing the usage of cement. So I was working for the cement company, so that was not exactly the proper, people to pitch. So basically, it didn't grow. So, but I was like, I have to do it again. So I did another approach, and then another approach. We have to. We're going to increase the market share. We are going to go to.
Right.
I did different approaches, but I wasn't successful. Fortunately, I wasn't successful at that point. So I decided to step down and do it by myself. Of course, I did the things in the right manner. So I talked with my bosses. I explained my reasons, and so they gave me the blessing and say, okay, do it by yourself. So we support you, and they did it. My first customer, I remember. They got my first customer. They bring it to my table.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't help but saying that you cemented yourself out of a job. I just had to say that. Basically, that's kind of what you did. But things happen for a reason, don't they?
Absolutely. I'm sure that it's a perfect plan. for every one of us, there's a perfect plan and the timing is perfect. So
And
the
it,
thing happen where they have to happen.
and that's, it kind of goes back to what we just said about, how did you take action instead of just saying you were in another country, I got to do something about it. You could have easily gone home and whatever, but it was still there. And this is where it kind of happened then, where, again, not by accident, it was meant to be that you'd leave there, but that's where the opportunity came from to do what you do. And how crazy it is that that's where you got your first customer also, from them. Good moral of the story there is keep the relationships good,
So, yeah,
basically.
absolutely. Yeah.
So expand on that. When you did start that, how did that all unfold, and what happened?
Well, I find out different things. One of the things is that poverty was attended at that point. Uh, in the people mindset used to be like the poverty should be attended by governments or by NGOs,
Mhm.
never by a private sector. It should be a non-profit initiative always. I don't know. There was a lot of paradigms that over creating a business for the bottom of the pyramid. So that's where I saw the opportunity, not in terms of business, but in terms of doing something real big.
Right.
Because let me tell you a couple of hard data.
Yeah.
For example, a only less than 1% of the world population have more than 50% of the total wealth of the planet, and the rest have like like less than 30%.
Right.
So the wealth distribution is very unfair.
Yeah.
So there's a huge market if you see it like in that way.
Sure.
So the opportunity is there. So the thing is how to connect this huge opportunity, creating something real big. So making good and making well, in balance.
Sure.
So in my opinion, if you want to grow your in any company, you grow or you disappear.
Hmm.
So and if you want to grow, you at some point you have to raise some money.
Hmm.
And in social enterprise is not different,
Right.
because you have to grow it as much as you can, because the more you grow, the more impact you have. So you must grow big.
Yeah.
No?
Hmm.
So I created a business model related to grow, but based on on the volume, and to keep this social like ADN.
Hmm.
The business model was based on low price, low margin, high volume. You know?
Right.
So every single time that I that I win a dollar, I'm changing one life. So I better get rich, because it's the.
Well,
Well,
you
of
get rich.
course, I'm joking, but no,
I
but
know.
it's.
Yeah.
I mean, the concept is there, because the more money you win, the more lives are you changing.
Absolutely.
So you better get big. So I started creating, of course, because of my formation, as I told you, I'm a civil engineer. So I started with this business model, bringing houses for those who have nothing in the hills. Super difficult. But at some point, I didn't start with the low hanging fruit. I started with the most difficult market, which was in the hills. It's super difficult. You have to travel like 3 hours driving, hard terrain, and so to
Uh-huh.
to get to these families. Disperse one house here, and maybe 2 miles later you build another house, and so I started like that in a self-construction business model. So I provide the raw material to them, and I train them to build their own house by themselves.
Hmm.
And the business model was like it was based on this volume. I start growing and growing, and at some point I was building like 10,000 houses a year.
Wow.
So so the company got real big. So I decided to stop there, and see then what's next?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to grow this as much as I can, as I just mentioned, or what do I have to do to make a real social scale up? So that's when I like make a hard stop, and then make a pivot, and, and do what I am doing right now.
Yeah, and you wrote a book, Capitalismo Social, right?
Yeah.
And you describe that in the book.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a personal biography, but it's a compilation of different ideas that I have. Of course, the social entrepreneurship, as you know, is like an ecosystem now.
Right.
And 15 years ago or 20 years ago, it wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so basically, the idea in the book is like it's a message for the social entrepreneurs, saying, okay, you have to behave as a real entrepreneur. It doesn't matter if you are social or not,
Right.
because at some point, if you start growing, you're going to have competence and competitors,
Mm-hmm.
and they, at some point, you're going to have to raise money. And at this point, I have never met any investor that put the money just because of your big heart.
Right.
The real investors
Well,
want.
if they do, it's just a donation. It's not an investment.
Absolutely, yes, it's philanthropy.
Yeah.
But to make this real big, it's better to raise social investment and
Absolutely.
give something in exchange.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're limited by yourself. So you have to create this business model. So that's what I basically talk about in the book. And the other target of the book is like the philanthropist. And basically what I say is, okay, it's great to make some philanthropy, but it's better to make social investing, because at that point you multiply your money X times.
Yeah. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and even sports teams. I compare a lot to sports, and they say, even with kids, when I've coached, for example, maybe that's a better analogy. The you certainly, when you're a kid, you want to have fun playing sports, but you'll actually have a lot more fun if you try your very best to win the game. Now, if you lose, it's not the end of the world, because you know you tried your best. But you don't. It's more. You don't just say, well, we'll have a little bit of fun. We'll try. You're going to have a lot more fun if you really try to win the championship. And I think it's the same what you're talking about. You know, even nonprofits. And someone recently told me, why would you ever want to work in a company where it starts with non first, non-profit? Why would you want to do that? And I never thought of that before, but yeah, why do we call things non-profit or non-this? It should be called social entrepreneurs or whatever. And so you really created an opportunity for people to have self-esteem, have dignity, have their own place to live, pull out of poverty. I mean, there's a lot that's involved in giving somebody a home, right?
Yes, yes, but it's not only a home. What you are at the end of the day, what you are really doing is changing lives, because the home is the beginning. But think about like day to day in these kind of families. Uh, the kids, if they don't have a decent home, it's easier to get sick.
Yep.
So if they get sick, they aren't able to go to the school, or maybe if they have like stomach diseases or whatever, the brain doesn't get to the maximum capacity of of retention of knowledge. And so there's a lot of problems related of with not having a decent home, or a safety home.
Yeah.
So it's not only, I mean, the house is only the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but the impact is super high.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot, and you just look at homeless people. When you don't, everybody needs a base. Everybody needs a place that they feel safe in. And you're right, and I think we miss this sometimes. How it affects, like you say, dignity, self-esteem, healthcare, crime, um, lack of education, meaning all these kids aren't becoming leaders who care, and they probably would become leaders who care. So that's why I think it's fantastic. And we talked about this a little bit last time. I think too, there's people now building tiny homes for people,
Yeah.
just for the not the same concept necessarily, but results.
Yeah. And to be honest, what I found out is that you don't have to be this guy that create the COVID vaccine to become to be something different.
Right.
But a few years ago, the Forbes magazine gave me the magazine that I have like over there.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me the cover, and it was because I created a super simple business model, but was like a game changer. At some point, I was thinking, okay, even this is an affordable house for these families is not affordable. I mean, the average price of the house is like $5,000,
Mm-hmm.
which is super cheap.
Right.
But even $5,000 for these families are not affordable.
Yeah.
So at some point, I started to think how to make it affordable for these families. So the easiest way is, okay, let's do it in stages, 3 different stages, and so. But the secret sauce was like break the house starting from the roof. I mean, instead of building the house from bottom to top,
Right.
I started building houses from top to bottom. So 3 stages. First stage, roof. Second stage, walls. Third stage, the base or and each stage can be separated by months. So the first stage is just having like a roof with the columns, and that's it. Why?
I was going to
Yeah.
ask you, because I'm not an engineer. I'm thinking, how does the roof stay up?
Yeah, just the roof and the columns, and that's it. No? But it's funny if you think about it. What the big moment for those who build the house by themselves is when they put the roof. It's like they make a party, and it's because the sense of you have like now a shelter that can protect your family. And so it's a big moment for those. The average time that people spend building their own house is like in Mexico, 10 years is the average time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
If you think about it, in 10 years, your family can grow or decrease, or there's a lot of things that happen in 10 years. So it's
not to mention the things you miss.
Absolutely. So if you start building the roof at the first stage, you can use this roof without the sensation that for those who have built a house, it doesn't matter if you build a house in New York or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you always feel for the first half of the process, you feel that you are dropping money to the trash, no?
Exactly.
Because you see nothing. There's no usage for the house before having a roof.
Right.
If they start with the roof, they can use the roof as a kitchen to keep the animals, the wolves, or whatever they want to, because they have a roof.
Mm-hmm.
At the second stage, you put the walls so they have a shelter, and everything that happens later on happen inside the house. So it was like super simple but super magic. The first project that I did, the one that CIMEX got to my table, it was like 400 roofs. So after building the 400 roofs, 1 year later, I raised the money to finish the houses.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came back to this community, 50% of the houses was 100% finished by them. So I was like, what happened here? Why they have like 3 or 4 generations living with the rustic materials, and when we put the roof, somehow they got the money, they got enough money to finish the house by themselves. Why? So it was so I hired some sociologists to analyze what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
And the final like report was like, what we did on purpose, what we did is we put on their radar something that they never had it before.
Right.
So I mean, in terms of aspiration, they never think about having a home, because in their minds, they will never have a home, because it's not for them. They born in that conditions, and maybe
Sure.
they will raise in that conditions. So when we put the roof, they say, okay, I can, so I will, and the magic happens there. So
I think it's brilliant. And I had somebody way back at Deloitte, when I was at Deloitte, told me, brilliance is simple. He told me,
yeah,
and that's a great example of it. And it is so brilliant, because unless you see it, like, even they say see it and you believe it. If you see somebody that looks like you who's now the president of a company, you say, oh, maybe I can do that. So that's kind of what you're talking about. You got the roof there. Now this is becoming real, right? And I
yeah.
guess that motivates you. This can really happen. I think that's brilliant. And I'm thinking, yeah, because if you're building all the other stuff, it's you're thinking it's so long, it'll never happen, type of deal. So, man, that's super cool. That is super cool.
It is. The last part of the story is that after building thousands of houses and so, at some point, after studying the OPM in HBS, the founder of the OPM program, Linda Applegate, which is a great, super kind woman,
Mhm.
decided to write a business case about the history of myself and the company. So I spent hours and hours talking with her. And at some point, she asked me, okay, what is the best thing that you are doing right now? I mean, describe your business model, but what is the ingredient that make you unique?
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I'm not, the, my uniqueness is not building a house, because come on, it's a $5,000 house. I'm not that unique, no. So it was like, okay, what I am really doing is connecting wealth with the bottom of the pyramid. I'm not a house builder, I'm a connector. I'm like this funnel channel connecting the wealth with the bottom of the pyramid. I know how to speak rich and I know how to speak poor,
Mhm.
and that's the real power. So I was like, okay, so why don't we use this to make different businesses related to help the bottom of the pyramid to improve their lives, not only with houses, but with different industries.
Mhm.
No? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of synergies that you can use. So you can create a real platform using, the benefiting different companies in different industries for the same purposes, the same market, which is. So I started to invest or or start different companies related to help the bottom of the pyramid, but in different industries. So I bought a company related to water, and then I invest in a company related to clean energy. And we started to make microloans and so on. So at, at that point, I was like super excited, because uh, I created like a social holding, no, which is my company now, which is Social Global Leaders,
Right.
which is a social holding, and the description is social entrepreneurs investing in social entrepreneurs. So basically, what I am trying to do is like to create this culture that it doesn't matter what you are doing, you have to create the most value as you can, uh, putting profits and social impact in balance. So that's basically the
Yeah, it's a perfect model, and you're a perfect role model for, you said connecting, wealth with them. You also connected hope with them. You connected opportunity with them. You connected, people need people to believe in them so they can believe in themselves too. And so I think you're being a little too humble by just saying connected wealth with them. And wealth. What's the definition of wealth? Wealth is money, but it's not just money. It's belonging. It's feeling like just like a person, and it's a great story. So I mean, you definitely deserve to be on a Leaders Who Care channel. I'll tell you that.
Thank you so much. Well, let me tell you the third part of the story, because the first part was like the houses. The second is like creating this platform or this holding. And the third part is like, okay, how can we become like a true inspiration for those who want to make the change in the world? So I figure out that the poverty have no boundaries. I mean, there's no borders, there's no walls, there's no languages, there's no colors. The poverty doesn't know about anything about that. The poverty doesn't have passports. The poverty, I mean, it doesn't care. A poor family is a poor family wherever they have the unfortunate to no. So for those who have the blessing of doing something, we have to go big, or go big or go home. No.
Right.
So I decided to expand the business model, and that's why I moved my personal office to the US, because as I am a challenging guy, I decided to challenge the status quo. So the status quo for those who born and raised in Mexico or Central or South America is like look at the US as the helpers. No? So everyone look for the US to come to the US to ask for help for our countries and so. But after helping more than 500,000 persons in my own country, I decided to why can't I help the helpers? So I decided to move my personal office to the US and start helping people in the US, because historically the US are the helping country.
Right.
But 17% of the population in the US live below the poverty line. So, so maybe we can do something here. So we started a new business here related to provide an affordable house for those who live below the poverty line, and start buying entire buildings and remodel the buildings and rent it as for a very low ticket for those who have a very low income. And so far we have almost 500 apartments in the East Coast and so on. I started that 2 years ago.
I know when you first told me that, I said it's, and you know what I think about there is, again, you're creating community at the same time also.
Yeah, that's my real passion. That's what when I connected with you, I was like, wow, there's a huge community here. We can do something together. And so that's why I am so excited to be part of what you're leading. So
no, me too. It's because I've said this so many times, when after studies I read, the number one thing that fills people's hearts and souls and gives them the purpose to go forward is belonging somewhere, belonging in a community. And so when you give them that home, it doesn't need to be a mansion. It doesn't need to be this big. It just means to be home. And if it's in a community like you're having with the apartments, then that becomes, and it's getting back to basics. It's getting back to, people, just look at the pandemic. People are so in need of having that community that
absolutely
you're talking about. So it's brilliant.
Absolutely. As you know, the difference between the human race and the rest of the species in the earth is our capacity to organize and to communicate with ourselves. So that's the real differentiator between the human race and the rest of the species in the earth. So let's use it to really make a good change for the humanity.
Well, one of the other differentiators, as we kind of complete here, is humans are able to remember experiences and memories better than any other living creature. Remember a lot of that stuff, and as a member, as an advisory board member with the knowledge pledge, bringing that knowledge and experiences to the table is also critical to social entrepreneurships. So tell me your thoughts on the knowledge pledge and what they're doing, in your opinion.
No, well, your description when we talked the first time, your description as the Airbnb of the brain is, for me, was a mind blowing. It's like, okay, this is brilliant because it is how it is. I mean, the knowledge pledge. I had the opportunity to read some profiles of the members of the net. It's amazing. It's like super talented and experienced people with a lot of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really the way to go, in my opinion. Is the way to go. We have to share. We have to learn how to share. We have to learn how to inspire, and we have to start moving, because nobody is going to do anything. What we have to start doing, while talkers talk, doers do. So
Yeah, no,
it's how I see the knowledge pledge.
and it so aligns with what you were saying. You know, money doesn't solve everything. The roof solves a lot when you talked about it. And sure, you needed money to build it, but in relation to other things, it was more than just the money to build the roof that you made happen there. You made belief happen. You made so many other things happen. So and I think you're going to do the same thing with everything you're doing here in the States now with the knowledge pledge. So I'm just thrilled to be able to chat and get to know you, and hopefully do a whole bunch of other stuff together. But let me ask you one last thing. With everything that happened in 2020 and what's going on in 2021, what are you most grateful for?
Well, this was like a crazy years, but one of the most grateful things that happened in my case is to have the opportunity to make a hard stop and make an internal analysis of who I am, why am I doing this, why me, and why now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty convinced that we can create a more collaborative world. So this hard stop, like, made me like rethink. Of course, gave me the opportunity to stop and smell some flowers. No,
Right.
but now with a renewal, my soul, after seeing the what is happening in the world, I say, okay, we have to do it harder, because the world really need good stuff. So that's what I am grateful for.
Cool. Well, I'm certainly grateful to having met you and hear the story, and I look forward to doing some cool things together.
We will.
Thanks so much for participating. It's really a pleasure.
It's a true honor for me, Mark. And thank you again for the invitation. And I'm sure that we have a lot of things to do together.
Guaranteed. We're gonna dance on a lot of roofs or something like that.
Absolutely.